We want to go there now to bring in Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, of course, a Democratic ally of President Biden, but somebody who understands the contours of a very important state that we pretend to know here in Washington. And I wonder what we might learn here in our conversation. Representative Dingell, it's great to see you. Welcome back. I'd like to start with this jobs report because this is the kind of story that the president wants to tell and frankly has been telling. Is it perplexing to see this not connect with public opinion, or can you draw on your experience to tell us that it will show up in the next couple of months, that this is a leading indicator?
So I think, look, I'm somebody that knows it really matters when you go into that poll, into that voting booth, how you feel. Polls are, everybody thought Hillary Clinton was going to win that election, except for a few of us. And the polls were still showing she was going to win election day. And people told me I was crazy when I, for months, said Donald Trump could and then would win the election. I think that we've all been through a very difficult time. The cost in grocery stores has remained high. People are seeing job security. We've seen significant labor negotiations, which is giving people real wage increases. And now it's our job to get, it's not just the president's job, it's our job to get in the union halls and give him the credit that he deserves for what he has actually done the last few years.
Tell me what's happening in union halls, because you were in one yesterday with the president. He's received the endorsement of the UAW. And we know as well that Donald Trump has been courting the union vote here. I'm sure you have very strong feelings about that, but he's talking to Teamsters members who already voted for him once. How does Joe Biden take the power of walking the picket line and turn it into something real here?
So I think he needs to go in and connect with those workers. And it's great to get an endorsement from a union leader, and that's a good thing. But quite frankly, for the last few years or decades, people aren't getting into those halls. They're not doing the door-to-door. They're not talking to each other about what's really happened. I know that in the instance of the UAW, President Fain was not one of the early presidents that came to. He did the comparison of what Donald Trump had done for auto workers, what President Biden had done for auto workers. He doesn't give his name lightly, and he is going to work to do everything he can. He's going to be in those halls. He's going to talk to every worker. He's going to tell them, Donald Trump hasn't delivered for you. He didn't care if you got a pay raise. He didn't care if you had a pension that was going to be protected. He didn't care if you got health care. Donald Trump is very good at playing on people's fears, but not delivering. We and other union, I'm going to get in every union hall I can so that I can show how Joe Biden has actually delivered for the worker.
Well, I find it interesting, confusing, sometimes fascinating. I don't know what the right word is, Congresswoman. When Joe Biden goes and talks to union members about the power of organized labor, about the future, in this case, of the auto industry, some of the nuances that come with union membership, Donald Trump shows up. He talks about the border. And he talks about the fact that China's going to own them when EVs come around. Does Joe Biden need a sharper message?
So this is what I'm going to say to you. Donald Trump was very effective. I'm always very honest that in 14, 15, 16, we did a terrible job as Democrats talking about trade. I knew what these workers had all seen their jobs shipped overseas to Mexico and to Asia, and they didn't want to see that happen anymore. Joe Biden has brought those jobs home. People are worried about people coming into the border and over the border, and they're worried about safety and national security, but they're also worried that they might take their job away. And the fact of the matter is we have too many small businesses, we need caregiving, farmers that don't have people to fill the jobs. And secondly, I'm a car girl. You know that. I worked for the auto industry for more decades than I'm going to admit. I remember the 70s. I was young. But the domestic auto market lost our competitive advantage for more than a decade because we weren't ready when there was a demand for small cars because of increased gasoline costs. We're competing in a global marketplace. That's a fact. And I'm not going to cede our leadership to China or anything. EVs are part of our future, and we're going to build them here in America. He uses fear language. Our job is to talk about how we are protecting ourselves competitively and protecting the environment at the same time.
spending time with Congresswoman Debbie Dingell of Michigan as we walk down the campaign trail just a bit. I'd like to ask you about some of the stuff that's happening in Congress right now, Representative. But before we move from the campaign trail, the matter of criticism from Arab Americans, from Islamic Americans, Muslim Americans in your state. You've got a large population. It's an important demographic in Michigan. It's something that we've been hearing a lot about, of course, since Joe Biden spoke so forcefully in support of Israel in its war against Hamas. This is something that has turned into a repeated instance of heckling when he's in person. We're seeing protests in Washington that are shutting down traffic on some mornings. How much of a liability is this going to be in your state?
So I'm someone who tells the truth. These are very serious issues. I lived in Dearborn, Michigan for almost 40 years. Those people, the residents of Dearborn are my neighbors, my friends. They have family that lives over there. They have family that has died. They have family that doesn't have food. They don't have access to water. They have no place to live. Hamas is a terrorist group. What they did to Israel was absolutely horrific and cannot be condoned. But at the same time, we need a ceasefire right now. More than 30,000 innocent people have died over there, 12,000 children, a Jewish baby, a Palestinian baby. They're babies. We need to protect our children. We need a two-state solution. The president has to address it. He knows that he does. He's always been for a two-state solution. I know there are a lot of diplomatic things going on, and people say they can't talk about everything. They're going to have to become much more public and telling people what is going on and addressing this head on in the next few weeks.
You speak on a very personal level about this, Congresswoman. Did you deliver that message to the president yesterday?
Any conversation that I have with somebody like that is private and personal. People know when people talk to me, they know what I'm thinking. But I believe that. And I do think Israel has a right to exist. I mean, this is why I think a whole lot of American people are where I am. What Hamas did was horrific. It was a terrorist act. But you cannot watch these innocent children, these families die. It's horrific. It's a horrific situation.
Well, I know that there's talk about a ceasefire. How about another pause? How about a couple of days to get more hostages out?
All the hostages have to be returned. I called for the immediate release of them, and I want to see them get home. It's a very complicated situation. I'm clearly not at the State Department or the White House negotiating this, but the killing has to stop. But they're not getting humanitarian aid there. You don't know how hard it is trying to help families that I represent who have fathers and stepmothers and half siblings over there, and they've got the visas. They can't get across the border. And if you talk to people that are over there, the humanitarian aid is not getting through the bridges. It's not crossing in there. We need far more humanitarian aid than they're getting there than is there.
What's it like being a Democrat here from Michigan who engages with constituents on the extent that you do? The way you're talking makes me feel like your phone's ringing off the hook.
I talk to people. Look, I have been protested. I've been docked 6 times. I talk to everybody. Ugh. And they know when people are upset, I go and meet with them. I talk to people. And that's one of the reasons why I have good gut. I knew when we were in trouble when Donald Trump won, because I was in those union halls and they didn't think Democrats cared about their jobs. Right now, we have to, I know people are worried about both candidates, but I'm going to tell you about Donald Trump. He's the one that calls Muslims vermin, that they'll poison our blood. They should be banned from being here. Right now, the killing's got to stop. We need a two-state solution, but we've got to move forward.
In our remaining moments here, Congresswoman, you know what else they say Democrats have a problem with is the border here in the U.S. Are we going to see a deal that can pass the House? The Speaker says it's DOA, but I can't tell if this is bluster or if we're on the verge of a major breakthrough.
I think it's ironic. This is a very tough issue. There have been Republican presidents and Democratic presidents that have tried to deal with it. George Bush got close, and it ends up blowing up. We are sent to Congress to do tough jobs. We actually have people agreeing to something. Compromise isn't a dirty word, and things that the Progressive Caucus is going crazy over, and Republicans are going to kill it. They cannot say that they're serious about wanting something done at the border and then kill the most realistic and significant border bill, immigration bill that has been negotiated. I haven't even seen it, so I don't even know what I think. But saying a bill is dead on arrival before you've even seen it doesn't mean that you're serious about it. You want it as a political issue. You don't want to solve the problem.
Debbie Dingell reminds us of a point of fact with all the hand-wringing and gnashing of teeth. There's still no text. We think we might see it tonight. They say it will emerge by the weekend. Congresswoman, I want to thank you for the time. Come and see us in person next time you're back in Washington, D.C. Debbie Dingell, Democrat from Michigan's 6th, was with the president yesterday and speaking passionately here about some of the most important issues that we're hearing about on both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue.